Slides. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. In the meantime, while we get our slides situated, we have launched a poll, and we would love to know what space you have available and if you have any Carolinian plants already in your garden.
Okay, I feel like my screen is not being shared.
Nope, you got it.
It is.
Yep, it's shared. We're good to go.
Okay.
So in the meantime, we'll have these. So far, the space available from participants, 85% have access to a front or backyard, 21% have a raised bed, and 58% already have Carolinian plants in their garden. 42 do not yet. So they are ready to get in the zone today and get those Carolinian plants. I'm going to go ahead and begin recording this session. For later viewing, we're also live streaming on YouTube. Wonderful. Thank you all for joining. This video will be available at a later date. Yep, just got to that. Thank you so much. For those of you just joining us, thank you for being here today. I hope you are enjoying Seedy Saturdays thus far. We're happy to have you all. Today we are with Kelly, who will be moderating today's introductions and questions. Today's events will be a little different, so we will have our presentation and we will open it up for a discussion. First and foremost, again, thank you for joining us. I will begin now with a land acknowledgement. First, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. The land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe to share and care for resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is purchased by the Between the Lakes Purchase 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, North America, and we recognize that we must do more so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. Again, for those of you, I'm Shayla, and I'm Seedy Saturdays 2021 coordinator. Kelly will be moderating today's events, and today's presentations were made possible by the support of our sponsors, Ward 8 Councillor John Paul Danko, Mohawk Sustainability, Hamilton Public Library, Mount Hamilton Horticulture Society, and Fresh Start Environment. Kelly?
All right, welcome everybody. Today's presenter is Liz Kolwick. All right, she's a regular gardener who's looking to entice others to join her in creating the Greater Hamilton area as Canada's first continuous Carolinian garden. 95% of the Carolinian zone is privately owned, so anyone with a plot or a pot can help create essential wildlife corridors. This workshop is less about receiving information than it is about sharing ideas to give our at-risk species a boost in our own backyards and balconies. And now I'm going to turn it over to Liz. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much, Shayla and Kelly. Kelly was very generous there when she said I'm a regular gardener. As I was confessing earlier, I'm a terrible gardener, and part of the reason why I am attracted to Carolinian plants is that they are the only things I cannot kill. So I'm afraid that I won't have a wealth of knowledge about specific plants to recommend for different situations, but what I do have is an awesome tool that I want to introduce you to today. And frankly, my own failures, I think, are quite informative. So if we could move to the next slide. My goals today are a fewfold. One, I want to introduce you to inthezonegardens.ca, which is a fantastic collaboration between Carolinian Canada and World Wildlife Canada. I also want to persuade you to join it. Introduce you to a locally based Facebook group, Dundas Continuous Carolinian Garden, but it's really for the GHA. And mostly want to find out from you what would support you best in your efforts to add more Carolinian plants, whether you're just getting started out or whether you were a more experienced gardener. Next slide, please. So the Carolinian zone, it's pretty massive. It's a large part of the eastern U.S., but we are at the northern edge of it. So the northern edge of the Carolinian zone is this, sort of squiggly black line that runs from, kind of like Windsor to just east of Toronto. And you can see from the map, there's not a lot of green in there. And a federally commissioned study suggested that we need about 30% plant cover over our landmass to have healthy air, water, wildlife, including us, life below the soil. And we are currently at around 15% and it's declining. Next slide, please. Now, not too coincidentally, when you look at where the biodiversity is concentrated in the Carolinian zone, it also happens to be where there have been Indigenous communities whose knowledge and stewardship has protected that biodiversity. And I'm just putting that out there because when you think about where you want to get your plants from, there are some great Indigenous owned nurseries, and I'm just going to cut and paste the website for Guyana into the chat. I personally do not find their website user-friendly, but they are friendly. And if you contact the people of Guyana, they can send you a catalog. And according to a botanist at World Wildlife Fund Canada, they have the gold standard in terms of ethical practices for sourcing and raising and labeling Carolinian plants. Next slide, please. So why protect Carolinian species? This could really be called, why is the Carolinian zone awesome? It is pretty incredible. We've got over 70% of Canada's biodiversity in less than 1% of our land mass. It's actually around 0.25% of our land mass. It also has the most at-risk species in Canada. So we've got, let's see, around 125 species that are labeled threatened, endangered species of concern, and another 400 plus that are considered rare. So it's an abundance of life and an incredible responsibility, I think, that we have here. Next slide, please. So we've got all these gorgeous creatures in it. There was the monarch in the last one. We've got the eastern flying squirrel. So, if you have the opportunity to have tall trees on your property, that's marvelous. Next slide, please. Of the beautiful little Canada warbler, right, which likes to spend its time in a shrub layer of the forest. So if you have trees on your lot or not, you have room for some shrubs, that would be great. These critters like to eat insects. So you're bringing in a troop to protect your garden. And next slide of the very cute, I think, rusty patched bumblebee. This is a wonderful generalist in the Carolinian zone. Pollinates about 60 different types of plants, from bergamot to hawthorn, milkweed, goldenrod, aster, fragrant raspberry. And this is one of the Carolinian creatures that you can help support, not just through the plants that you have, but also the ways you garden. So this is one of those bees that likes to live underground. So if you can leave a little patch of dirt, we've got burrowing bees in the Carolinian zone. Queens may hibernate in fallen wood. So if you have the opportunity to leave some wood lying, that's marvelous. But really, when you're thinking about what Carolinian plants to bring in, the more different species you can, the better, because the fungus under the soil is also really key to soil and water and air health. And it has evolved relationships with particular plants. So there are these pairings, just like there are pollinator plant pairings, there are plant fungus pairings. So the more biodiversity you have above the soil, the more you'll have below the soil as well. Next slide, please. So I really got to thinking about this because, like I say, because I am a terrible gardener, but B, also just to think about all of these creatures we could be better supporting. And what I would love to see is for an effort to happen across Hamilton and Dundas to use whatever space we've got at our disposal to create corridors for Carolinian plants. And in doing so, then we're creating corridors for pollinators and other creatures. So we could create a continuous Carolinian garden, starting with what we have now, adding a plant or a pot, and working towards that 30% Carolinian plant cover. And that's not just for people with gardens. When you think of the potential in a high rise with balcony space, there's a phenomenal opportunity there. Next slide, please. So this is a shot of I'm trying to remember his name, Ryan Godfrey from World Wildlife Fund. He lives in a condo and he has only a balcony space. And this is his balcony with some of the species that he's considering, including white cedar. The reason that one has question marks beside it is that he wasn't sure whether that one was going to work out. But you can see that even in a small space, there's an incredible amount of biodiversity there. And I know that the link is on the slide, but I just want to throw it into the chat as well. It is a very entertaining and informative presentation. It's free, it's online, then you can access from there their whole playlist. It's a really wonderful playlist. And one of the things that was revealed in this particular workshop was that there were participants as high up as the 19th floor in their buildings who said that they had seen pollinators on their balconies because of the things that they planted. Next slide, please. So just because there's that goal of 30% land cover doesn't mean things need to be overwhelming. You don't need to rip out what you've got. If you can spare a square meter or even a square foot, that's awesome. So the plants listed here are all things that you could grow in a square foot of soil. This is obviously not an exhaustive list whatsoever. I'm going to show you some guides that provide more information. But one thing I did want to point out is that shade is not a dirty word in Carolinian gardening. Really with any condition that seems like a so-called tough condition, there are Carolinian plants that have adapted to that. And when I was thinking about my own favorite Carolinian plants, almost all of them are shade plants. Foam flower is gorgeous. When bloodroot comes up, it's just so cheering. There's an incredible variety of bloom shape and leaf shape and shade. So much variety in terms of what's evolved here. Next slide, please. Okay, this is sort of a sad little photo, but that little stick beside the measuring tape is a common hop tree, which we planted in our garden in the spring. And you can see that this winter, it is still not even 2 feet tall. And yet, we've already seen such a wildlife show because of it. So it's a larval plant for the giant swallowtail. And even though this sapling is tiny, almost as soon as we planted it, a giant swallowtail came and started doing laps in our yard and landed on this little sapling every time it went around. And I've heard stories like this from literally everyone who I've talked with about Carolinian gardening. And it's because there are Carolinian critters who are looking for food and shelter. And if you provide it, they will find it. So as much as gardening is typically talked about as a pursuit that requires patience, Carolinian gardening would be the exception since we're in the Carolinian zone and have critters who are looking for the kinds of plants we could be adding to our garden. Next slide, please. So now to get to In the Zone. In the Zone Gardens is a really neat website that has evolved as a collaboration between World Wildlife Fund Canada and Carolinian Canada. World Wildlife Fund was looking at how people typically feel connected with nature, and gardening came up a lot more than they expected. At the same time, Carolinian Canada was working with ecologists to figure out what the most effective steps were that could be taken towards addressing the biodiversity crisis in the Carolinian zone. And it turns out that the answer was pretty simple. Because over 95% of the Carolinian zone is privately owned, if private citizens plant Carolinian plants, that is, it's an effective measure if enough people do it. So In the Zone was born to help gardeners pursue that goal. And it's got some pretty awesome tools in it. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I like as a non-botanist is the fact that it has expert resources, easy to use grow guides for different situations that are vetted by people who have who have assessed what's accurate information and not. And I say that as someone who thought I was doing native gardening before. And discovered that a lot of what I'd planted was native to somewhere in Ontario, but not to the Carolinian zone. To make things even easier, they have developed an authoritative line of plant tags. So if you see their plant tag, you know you are getting something Carolinian, and you know it's also been ethically sourced. They provide training sessions. Obviously, those have been online for about a year. Number 4, hopefully we'll get back to those. They're not doing garden tours at the moment. But these things will reemerge. And they've also got a pretty cool tracker that we'll get a bit of a peek at later. Next slide, please. So I love their gardening guides, and I'm going to put a link to some others in here. But to get their gardening guides, you just sign up for inthezone.ca or inthezonegardens.ca. And that will give you access to their guides, which are linked to different soil and sun and water types. They are, I think, quite awesome. But I'm going to share another couple of resources here. So Grow Me Instead is a nice guide if you've got something invasive that you'd like to replace, like you've got periwinkle and you're trying to figure out, what could fill that niche. Grow Me Instead is really nice. The North American Native Plant Society has grow guides for just about every region in North America. So if you're joining us from outside the Carolinian zone, this is a nice place to go. It's also just got a wealth of information. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, this is just a shot of some of the misleading marketing that you'll find where non-native cultivars might be labeled native, and maybe they started off as a native plant, but they've been bred for things other than providing food and shelter to the creatures that live here, and sometimes the cost of no longer being appetizing to the creatures that feed on them. Next slide. So you can see on the tag that there's both the Carolinian Canada logo and World Wildlife Fund on the first tag. And you see the World Wildlife logo again on the second tag. So the In the Zone tags here let you know that the plant is Carolinian and that it's been ethically sourced. And these aren't just available from small growers. They are also now available through the whole Loblaws chain. So that includes, President's Choice and Fortino's as well. Next slide, please. Also, once you join In the Zone, you get access to their database of nurseries that, again, are sort of doing things both right in terms of getting the right species, and in terms of sourcing them ethically. Next slide. So I also think it's a great opportunity to take part in citizen science. Because In the Zone is really working on trying to figure out where the corridors are and where they can be strengthened. When you sign up and provide information about the kinds of things that you're growing, it helps them see how we're doing in terms of biodiversity here. And of course, you're contributing to lots of other things too, right? Helping to protect those 500 plus rare or at-risk species in the area, doing things in a climate smart way, helping to fuel the green economy, taking care of water. We didn't even get into what this does to protecting water and soil health, and adding to healthy communities. But also it's fun, right? Like it's really joyful. And one of the things that I've noticed is that this for me helped put me in touch with lots of other gardeners. Gardeners are already pretty darn nice people. Gardeners with a cause are nicer still, I think. Next slide, please. And we're all used to tracking things that we do now and getting a report back. This one I actually find is quite useful. In the Zone will tell you after you do put in information about the things that you're growing and the area you're growing them in. it'll give you a score and suggest goals for what to do next. Oh, just saw a question here. Just be sure, unless it has the it's so it's not that anything that is missing the in the zone plant label is guaranteed not to be Carolinian. It's just that if you don't have the know-how, like I don't, to discern whether a plant in a pot is Carolinian and whether it's been ethically sourced, you can just look for in the zone plant labels, and then you'll know that what you're getting is Carolinian and ethically sourced. Yeah, and the use of the word native is it's just not regulated. So it could be that something labeled native is, and it also might be native to somewhere else, or be a non-native cultivar altogether. So one more thing I want to address on actually two more things I want to address on this slide. One is that when you get into in the zone gardens, it does ask a lot of questions, but you don't have to do it all at once, right? As soon as you sign up, you have access to their resources. You also, if you want to be able to follow our progress as a community, you can check off Dundas Continuous Carolinian Garden as where you found out about in the zone gardens if you're not already on it. And they have offered that they can give us reports over time to see how we're doing as a community, which is pretty neat. Next slide, please. Yeah, and you can see, they are making an impact already. Like just individuals like you and me who have an interest in adding Carolinian plants to our garden are popping up all over the Carolinian zone. Next slide. There's so many benefits. I think we've already touched on a lot of this, but again, it's such a multi-purpose win. It's beautiful. It provides food and shelter to critters who need it. Brings people together. It's certainly easy to maintain. As I mentioned at the start, I can kill pretty much any plant except for a Carolinian plant. So, they don't need to be fertilized. Once they're established, they don't need to be watered. So it saves you effort, gets you more of that hammock time that Farmer Kevin was mentioning in the previous session, and makes for beautiful neighborhoods. Next slide, please. So I'm hoping to get together a group of people who are interested in supporting one another and their own efforts at Carolinian gardening. So there is a Facebook page. We're only about 30 strong at the moment, but it's a place where you can come to share resources, to ask questions, even swap plants and seeds if you'd like. We try to link to related events. It's also nice to be able to upload photos too. So this was actually a milk snake that appeared in our garden. I'd never seen a milk snake before we started adding Carolinian plants to our yard. And in fact, they are supposed to be rare. It was just beautiful. I mean, it's got gorgeous markings. If you join the Facebook group before March 15th, you have the chance to win a Carolinian wildflower seed mix, courtesy of good old Carolinian Canada and World Wildlife Fund. So just putting that out there. There isn't another way to join, and I totally appreciate not wanting to be on Facebook. If you would like to be entered in the draw, let's say that, how about if you can share your email address with the Seedy Saturday folks? Is that fair for me to say, Shayla and Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So if you don't want to be on Facebook, which I totally get, yeah, but you do want to be in the draw, share your email with Shelly and Kayla, and they'll share that information with me. Thank you, Shayla and Kelly. And if you are interested too, I'll also send you content on a course that we're putting together. So this is, kind of working towards a free online course that we're intending to share on Coursera on just success stories with Carolinian gardening. We've got some really interesting people lined up who are, is it a closed group? Oh, that's interesting. You know what? Okay, let me, I didn't realize it wasn't showing up for people. Let me just grab the link here and see if it works for you. It is a closed group, but you should be able to find it. My apologies for my slow cut and paste skills here. Okay, so I've added the link to the chat. Hopefully you'll be able to find it. If not,
we will provide a follow-up email. So
wonderful.
We'll put it in there.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Yes. Got to keep out the gardening bots. Okay. Next slide, please. And this will be the last slide. Yeah. So, so one of my questions for you is really what would be helpful to you as you are planning either starting a Carolinian garden or making additions to the plantings you already have. And please don't limit yourself to thoughts that are attached to a Facebook group, because we want to make this happen. You know, it seems to me that there is enough gardening pride in the greater Hamilton area that we can get together enough gardeners that we can create corridors, especially since we actually don't need properties to be adjacent to one another in order for a butterfly or a bird to be able to fly from one plant to another. Now, I think, Shayla, you had suggested that for people to share ideas, you want them to raise a hand?
So I'm just going to read what's in the chat room first.
Okay.
I don't know if you got to that. So Helen just says, I missed some of the speakers and need advice on how to help drain the water from soil areas if we get lots of rain. I know about nutrients, just not about ensuring drainage. But yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or unmute your mic. Just let's make sure we're not talking over each other and respecting that time.
And sadly, addressing drainage issues is just outside the scope of my expertise. But on In the Zone, you can actually ask an expert. So, okay, let's see, we've got some questions coming up. Advice about planting combination, what goes with what in interesting ways. Yeah, depending on the conditions, I think it is a great place to start on In the Zone Gardens with the planting guides that address your soil and light and water conditions. But there are gorgeous combos all throughout the Carolinian zone. You know, especially in the fall. What a beautiful fall it was for aster and goldenrod combinations everywhere. So those kinds of like plant communities, I think work really well for biomass, you know, above and below the soil, and just for beauty. I'm sorry that I'm not the person to come up with combos off the top of my head, but definitely look at the In the Zone garden guides because they are a great place to start. Let's see, how to provide plants to cover along.
We had another workshop that kind of went into a little bit of detail about that. So they will be available at a later date on YouTube. So if you missed that, it'll be there. And if not, Halton is doing a garden week this week, and they will be having great presentations where that information might be available. Yeah, so in the chat.
Now there's an interesting question here from Fiona Caldwell King. You may want to look up Forests Ontario because they, I believe, still have a sort of a land steward program where you may be able to get discounted Carolinian seedlings. I'm not sure.
I think you need 5 acres for that one.
Oh, no. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we only have 2.
Right, so. Shoot. Okay. Darn it.
If you live in the city of Hamilton, they will plant a tree on your front yard in their city allowance that is a Carolinian tree.
The other thing is, if you join the Facebook group, like Liz is talking about, I think, gardeners are great at sharing. So I'm sure you could start to get seeds or seedlings or cuttings from some of the other gardeners that are going to be on that group. And when it comes to gardening, gardeners are, in my opinion, are your best resource. Talk to the people in that group. get talking to the community, or if you know your neighbors who have any. It is going to involve some work on your part in order to make those connections or to maybe start those seeds yourself. But seeds are a really cheap way in order to get lots of plants. And that may be your best resource, I think. What do you think, Liz?
Yeah, absolutely. I am by far the least knowledgeable person in the Facebook group. There are actually some scientific and gardening heavy hitters there. So I would absolutely, start with that group. Yeah, there are also master gardener groups, but I wonder, the other thing is, Fiona, if you're comfortable sharing your email again with Green Venture, they can pass it on to me, because Sheila Dundooley, she is an awesome gardener of a large property. And I don't think she is on Facebook, so she's not necessarily in the group, but she is a generous spirit with her knowledge. Now I'm just going to make a note to myself to introduce you.
Yeah, you can send her my email or
Okay, beautiful.
somebody. That would be fantastic.
Okay.
You can just, if anyone has any questions, garden@greenventure.ca would be, and I'll pop that in the chat.
Okay,
and then I can get that to Liz. And then we just have a few questions. Is there more for tree seeds like Whiteline?
You know what? Both. Let's see. Both in the zone.ca, in the zone gardens.ca, and the North American Native Plant Association have lists of nurseries. I haven't been planting tree seeds myself, although having just learned about this interesting reforesting method where you bundle up a bunch of tree seeds in clay and toss them and see what grows. Might have to go that way. Oops, someone has entered the waiting room. Is there another session?
No.
After this one?
No,
okay.
I just let them in.
Oh, okay. Beautiful.
Yeah, sorry, that question should have been about white pine and oak seeds.
Right. Yes, and I am so sorry that I am, like I say, the least knowledgeable person in the Facebook group. But the good thing is, if you direct these questions there are people who can answer them. We've got botanists in the group, people who have been involved in wildlife corridor research, and also just really enthusiastic, experienced gardeners.
Yeah. And just popping in there, Rita, if you send an email to garden@greenventure, I can get back to you about oak seeds. Green Venture does have, we just launched kind of a pilot test program about growing your own oak tree. So we do provide kind of that kit, a little bit limited resources, but I can certainly look into that for you, Rita.
Was there anyone who had thoughts about what would be helpful in your own efforts? You know, I guess what are the things that have helped you with Carolinian gardening, and what are the barriers that you've run into? Because
can I just ask a question there, because that kind of relates to my question that I don't think you answered yet. Mm-hmm. But it's about using Dundas continuous Carolinian zone. Is it specific to Dundas, and are there other boundaries? Because we talked about barriers here. So
yes. Yeah. No, that's an excellent question. My intention hadn't been that it would be called the Dundas Continuous Carolinian Garden. It just sort of happened that way. So you do not have to be in Dundas to join the group. I'm seeing it as sort of like a greater Hamilton area kind of thing, in that we are, in this incredibly biodiverse zone, and we do have, I think, enough pride to have a gardening movement around that. Where are you calling in from?
Downtown Hamilton, Queen and York area. Rock on, Strathcona.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area. And are you working with pots or a plot?
I have my own house, so I actually have pots. I have a backyard, I have a front yard, and yeah, I do it all.
Beautiful. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. You are within the zone for sure.
But yeah, so the question beyond that though is, are there other Carolinian zones, for example,
Oh, I
like
see.
zones within zones? So like,
Yes, yes. So, you can, okay, there is the Carolinian zone, which itself is large, and we're at the northern edge, but it is, of course, marching north. Within the Carolinian zone, there are smaller life zones. And there is some debate, for example, about whether it makes sense to reintroduce species that are found currently elsewhere in the Carolinian zone, but are extirpated in our part. So I would not say that there's a ton of scientific consensus about that. And some of the research that's being done just isn't necessarily going to be of use to the current gardener. So there is research being done about differences between species in one small region versus another. But we also know that evolution works in interesting ways, and with wind pollinated plants, what is specific to one region can change. So I'm going with the experts on this one and saying, okay, if it's got an in the zone label, I can put it in the ground. If not, I may rethink it. I don't know, does that answer your question?
yes, it does.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes, connecting in person when it's safe would be better. So one of the things that we're working on actually is for when we can safely gather in person, it's actually to try to get a grant to make a bulk purchase of Carolinian plants, to have a plant sale at cost. Which personally I think, yeah, Rick likes that idea. Yeah, I think that would be nice. I mean, the other option that we're considering is have a markup and then have the markup used to buy plants for giveaways through, say, schools or something like that. I don't know. So if you have more thoughts on what would be useful for you, or things that would feel meaningful to either take your knowledge or your gardening resources a step forward, let me know. Let's see. I think there's a comment from Carolyn here. Yeah, finding growers in the area is helpful. It would be nice to spark the interest of children. And one thing that I find really kind of helpful in the resources that are out there is the information about what feeds on what, and for us to be able to put a tiny forked stick in the ground and see giant swallowtails because of it, is pretty fascinating. I think kids really respond to that, right? To the idea that that they're feeding something. Garden consultations would be nice. Oh, gets attached to plants. Well, then awesome, because if I can't kill them, neither can she. So let's see. Okay. So Alan, do you mind saying more about what you have in mind with garden consultations in a group?
Okay, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm kind of hooked up funny here, but
yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess my thought would be if people are interested, and it looks like lots of us would like to do more and know more, having sort of a group consultation. I'm not just thinking of you have one person from in the zone come to your garden, but you just say, okay, we're going to do a consultation. It's going to be on this date at this place. Person's open to having a group come, and then you kind of take a look at what's happening. The group connects, which is always fun, and you learn from the group. Plus the person who's having the consult done, really it's sort of win-win-win. I mean, obviously can't do that. Well, we can't do it with 2 feet of snow on the ground, but when the pandemic is under control, I would love to be part of something like that. Go around to people's gardens. Is there anything better?
That is a great idea. Are you volunteering to be the first garden, Alan?
Sure.
I used to work for Alan, in case it seems like I'm taking liberties here.
No, well, Sean James came to my garden last spring and pointed out all the things I had to get rid of, but also the things I was doing right. I learned a lot it was lots of fun, but I was thinking how much neater it would be to have a whole pile of people come and do that.
Yeah, and then someone's also suggested combining that with a seed swap. There is enthusiasm for that idea. Host large plant exchanges. Ah, nice.
Yeah,
Oh, look.
unfortunately, we can't be in person this year, but if you have extra seeds, Green Venture will be more than happy to accept that donation, and then we will put those in our seed libraries open to the public as well. Or if anyone is interested in that, we'll put out a call if anyone is interested in those specific seeds.
Is everybody
That's
here
awesome.
familiar with seed libraries?
Feel free to say more.
Yeah. Oh, Liz, are you familiar with the seed library?
Yeah.
I haven't used your seed library. I'm so embarrassed to say it, but
Everybody knows about the seed library, but you're right, Kelly. It may not be familiar with everybody.
So seed libraries work very similar to book libraries. And there's, I think, 5 of them across the city. Shayla, is that right? 5 of them now across the city?
Yeah, we have quite a bit. And for this specific event, Seedy Saturday, we've opened it up a little bit more, but 5 sounds right, Kelly.
So they're spread across the city. We actually have a listing on the Green Venture website, which we can include in the follow-up email. And there's packages of labeled seeds. You might even be able to find some Carolinian seeds within those. And you take the seeds, you grow the seeds, and then we ask that you try and save some seeds to return back to the library, because the idea is that more people are going to grow these plants. So it's just like a library. You take some out and then you bring some back. But of course, you can get hundreds of seeds even from one plant alone. So to save even just one plant's worth of seeds to return back to the library will more than, return what you borrowed. And that's the idea. And feel free to, if you have seeds that you want to share, you can put them in there. You can start the sharing of a particular type of seed. Just make sure that they're labeled. And again, there's information on our website. Oh,
and we have it in the chat. Yeah, that'll give you some information on how to sort your seeds and package them correctly and label them.
And you've got a couple of questions in response.
Yes,
so someone asked whether the seed library is just for people in Hamilton.
As far as I know, there's seed libraries in other cities. You would have to research yourself where those might be in other cities. As far as I'm aware, Green Venture is the one within Hamilton that sort of is the hub of information for the Hamilton ones. I'm
RBG
not sure.
has a seed library as well.
Who does?
RBG, Rita here as well, plugging in with seed library. Yeah, there's a great vast resources of seed libraries. If you haven't either, seeds of diversity as well. They're one of the greatest resources that we have to get that information as well.
And so just to confirm, let's say those of us who do have Carolinian seeds can contribute those to the seed library.
Oh, of course.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Again, Garden at Green Venture, if you have any questions about that, we'll get back to you. Just to be clear though, right now our seed libraries are not fully stocked as of yet because of this snowmageddon that we have going on, but we hope to stock them later next week, early March.
Awesome. Oh yeah, are there Carolinian favorites in terms of flowers? Boy, it might be a pretty common one, but columbine I love. When I first saw columbines, I was looking at non-native cultivars, the big showy double ones. But the native ones are so delicate and beautiful for a tough little plant. I mean, they look very fragile and they grow in so many different conditions. They don't seem to care about the level of sun or water, or the kind of soil to grow in anything. Boy, boy, I love in the shade. I mentioned a few that I love, but wood poppies, those are gorgeous. What's it called? Beard tongue. That is a really pretty one. Attracts lots of pollinators. It's got nice drooping flowers. It's got pretty reddish stems. Dense blazing star is such a vivid flower that's really beautiful. And I really do have a soft spot for bloodroot. Even though it's an ephemeral, it's there and it's gone. But it is tough, and it forms colonies. It's not invasive. But it will create a colony that builds each year, and it's such a harbinger of spring that I find it really delightful to see. And as much as I don't love either asters or goldenrod on their own, in combination, they're just so right. I don't know, but if milkweed, yeah. Yeah, it does have a gorgeous scent.
I'm just going to do a plug with Green Venture too. If you haven't visited our eco house, we have so many different areas of rain gardens and pollinators on site. It is currently, the house itself is closed to the public, but the site itself, it's quite beautiful when the weather is warmer.
And I want to put in a plug for a previous speaker too, if that's okay. Terry Lynn Brandt mentioned a use for milkweed that I had been totally unaware of. She mentioned using it to break up really dense soil and create ways for water to get into clay. So she was mentioning that in a permaculture context as a native substitute for daikon radish, but so much prettier than daikon radish. And so much more nicely scented. If you do plant sale idea, sounds good. Let's see. Already started farm at Hamilton. There are lots of plant sales around. The RBG does great plant sales. Don't know about Environment Hamilton's one. Thank you for putting in Terry Lynn Brandt's.
And she will be speaking at Halton's Garden Week as well too. So if you did miss her on our Seedy Saturday, please join in on her talk this.
It's sold out. It's sold out.
Oh, it is? Oh.
Yes, I tried as soon as I saw her.
Oh no.
I'm so sorry. But you said that her session is available on YouTube, right? Or will be?
Well, for ours, no, her session was not recorded. Just so we're respecting, her privacy.
Well, she also has a Facebook page. Right. So
yeah, she's definitely has her Facebook page. I just popped in her website there, so definitely feel free to reach out to her.
And if you do have other ideas later on about what would be helpful to you or barriers that you're running into and that you're hoping we can figure out a way to address, please do pop them into the Facebook page. Oh, best Carolinian plants for children to enjoy. Oh, maybe those really, really tall ones. Oh gosh, it's some sort of Rudbeckia, isn't it? Ellen, do you know what I'm talking about? It's about 6 feet tall. It is indestructible. Well, Joe Pyeweed is one, yeah. I'm thinking of the yellow. I've got to find it now, but it is so indestructible. And in the fall, kids can use them to chase one another. No, that's not it, but sunchokes are delicious. Okay, I've got to find this giant Rudbeckia now. Yeah, okay, Rudbeckia hirta, is that it? No, that's too short. No, that's not the one I'm looking for.
Somebody's saying Rudbeckia maxima.
Maybe, okay, could be. But these are all great suggestions. Yeah, false sunflower. I never know how to pronounce the one that Twin Beaks just suggested, but it's got such a great texture on it. Yes, that is, I think Lynn Gilmore has it. Is it, I don't know, it is look up Carolinian Rudbeckias. Let's let's see. No, the one I found is only 4 feet tall, and that is not the one I'm looking for because it can get up to 10 feet tall. So let's look up Carolinian Rudbeckia 10 feet and see what we get. What is the tallest Rudbeckia? Ah, here we go. Because my Latin is non-existent, I'm just going to put it in the chat. It is giant, it is indestructible. It apparently has edible leaves. I've never tried them, they're supposed to be good. And if you're looking for an easy green, apparently you can, unlike a lot of edible greens that you don't get in the supermarket, it can actually be harvested spring to fall, which is pretty cool. And the birds like to eat the seeds. It does self-seed like crazy, but you can yank it out. Oh, we are nearing the close.
Or share those seeds.
Yeah. Well, if you come by in the spring, I can give you the whole darn plant. Just go sideways on the topic. How can we protect what we have? Yeah, so much expansion and road building. Well, there are a couple things I would suggest. One is that since Hamilton, the city of Hamilton is quite clearly jumping on how the province has opened up the possibility of developing agricultural and green space, you may want to let your city councilor know that you have a concern about that. But in terms of protecting what we have, we're also in this pretty unique position that the Carolinian zone in Canada is over 95% privately owned. So even if we had an awesome conservation-minded government, it would still really be up to us, which is marvelous because it means we have direct control over what happens with the habitat here. Like we can feed critters and house them just by adding more Carolinian plants to what we've got. And because so many of these plants are so hardy, like there are a lot of them that will even grow in pots. Columbine being one of them. Dense blazing star is another. Actually, I should just look at the packet that I've got right here. Foxglove, the beer tongue. Ironweed is probably too big to grow in a pot, but maybe you can grow in a big pot. Wild bergamot. We've got just gorgeous hardy plants that, as I say, not even I can kill. Ontario government agenda overrides municipal level. Yeah, that's true. Yes. This started with the Ontario government paving the way to more paving. So do let your MPP know if you've got concerns about what they've done in terms of freeing up green spaces for development. But City of Hamilton also very recently put out a survey asking for thoughts on what they called intensification, different word for development. It was a multiple choice survey in which you had to reply to most of the questions. And for some of the answers, it didn't let you choose that you didn't want intensification. It just asked you, do you want this kind of intensification or that kind? So I don't like surveys like that. It's just not fair. Oh yeah, ostrich ferns, beautiful, delicious, really expensive to buy them in the grocery store. Just make sure you know for sure which fern you are cutting because other ferns can make you sick.
I think also talking to people about Carolinian plants and bragging at how easy it is to take care of your garden now that you've gone with native plants, right? And and singing their praises and just letting other people know how great they are and that we need to be planting them, I think is going to help get more of them in the ground directly or in pots.
For sure. Yeah, like I think most of us have or multiple people have mentioned, gardeners are nice people and they do like to share what they've got. Yes. Oh, and Dee Dee, thank you for bringing that up. I sort of feel like the pandemic has made some people feel like they need to choose between Carolinian gardening and food gardening, but they go together well. I mean, first of all, there are a lot of edible Carolinian plants, like elder, fragrant raspberry, wintergreen, there pawpaws, of course, are the sort of fashionable one. But they also just bring more pollinators to your garden, right? Those pollinators that are native to the area that have developed relationships with specific plants, they'll only come if they can find other stuff. And, the more pollinators you've got, the more diverse pollinators you've got, the better. Cool. Lynn, do you want to spell out what is that a Canadian Wildlife Fund? What is the CWF? Oh, okay. Don't know if we'll get a response. There we go. Yeah, it is Canadian Wildlife Federation. Okay, and they have. I think I've seen their stuff. They have nice little plaques that you can get in your garden. All right, I'm cognizant of the fact that it's 3:28. Yes. So I will put in one more plug to join the Facebook group if you're comfortable joining Facebook. If you want to, you don't want to join Facebook, but you do want to be eligible for Carolinian wildflower seeds, if you're comfortable sharing your email address with Shayla or Kelly, they'll share it back to me, which is marvelous. Thank you so much for letting me put you on the spot and for agreeing to that. And I do hope that you join the Facebook group because the community gets better the more people are in it. And as I said, it's got some real heavy hitters in it. So I hope that my lack of knowledge is not a deterrent to joining the group. There are some wonderful, knowledgeable people there. And thanks very much for taking the time to join on a Seedy Saturday.
No, thank you so much, Liz. And all the websites that Liz provided today, they will be in the follow-up email. So if you did not get them, don't worry, I will provide that to you. The session was recorded and will be available for your viewing at your leisure as well at a later date. Thank you all for being here and for sticking with us for the past 3 hours. I hope you are enjoying our Seedy Saturday events, and we will see you again next Saturday for our final Seedy Saturday. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Liz, for getting us in the zone today.
Okay, I'm going to answer one last question. I got a question about what the stick was that attracted the swallowtail. It was the common hop tree.
Liz, is that different than the hop vine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the seeds on the common hop tree were actually used as a hop substitute.
Okay.
Just in case you have a home brewery,
Thank you.
Kind of like Kentucky coffee tree.